LeRoy, how are you?
Hi, fine, good to see you.
Nice to see you too. We are very excited to have you for this interview, Hispanics for la Opera, and looking forward to learn more from you.
Great.
So thank you for coming again. My first question to you will be, you have Hispanic heritage at all?
Yes, yeah, well, I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah, oh my God.
Yes.
Because I thought so, with the last name Villanueva, I thought, well, it has to come from.
Both parents are from Puerto Rico.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cool.
But you're not going to ask me to practice my Spanish, are you?
Okay. I'm glad you are telling me already. Tell me about your parents. Are they musical too?
Actually, yes. Well, my father's a baritone just as well, but he didn't sing classical music. He was more of a nightclub singer in New York and sang jazz and I guess top 40 type stuff. And when he got married, he just put it aside and I guess decided not to go that route. My mother, it's true, she's a tenor.
Wow.
She's kind of a deeper voice, but she too loved to sing. And she and I and her husband, her second husband, and my brother, Eli, and I used to sing in a quartet together for church. So
that's the way you started singing?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, so your brother also is a singer?
Yes, also baritone. Very similar voices.
We're all baritones, huh?
Yeah.
It's good to have boys in his family. Good. So when was the first time you were at an opera? Do you remember that?
At which opera?
Like
at here,
the first time you were at an opera. When was the first one?
Oh, I think I was 9 years old, and New York City Opera used to come to Los Angeles here at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, and I was in the children's choir.
Oh.
Because they hired our choir, which was a boys' choir. They hired us to do all of the children's choir stuff. So that was the first time I ever saw an opera, was on stage. And I think it was La Boheme or Carmen, one of those two. So I remember my very first time. The thing is, I didn't know anything about opera growing up, nothing whatsoever. And even in boys' choir, we sang on stage in concert, on risers, standing and singing. There was no drama, no sets, costumes. And I remember, fitting costumes, and I thought it was kind of fun. But there was very little rehearsal involved in these productions. So really, it was during a dress rehearsal in the middle of Paris, here on stage in Los Angeles.
Oh, I see.
Because the set, of course, looked so realistic, and everybody was in costume, period costume, and it was just like being transported to another world.
Oh, that's so nice. So it
was
a good experience.
It was a great experience. That's really what lit the fire for me.
But you went to USC to study music theater, right?
Well, funny, actually, vocal arts.
Okay.
So it was more classical, but I did a lot of music theater and theater productions, and I hung out with that crowd a lot more than with the music crowd for a while. And I traveled with the theater department to Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival to perform there in music theater shows and also straight theater.
Wow.
And so I sort of crossed the line. And back then, I think now in some universities, they don't work together for some odd reason.
No, they rivals in a way.
Yeah, it's very strange. I had to kind of do it, had to sort of be quiet about it.
Well, good for you. I mean, look who you are now. You are a great baritone. We are grateful to have you. Have you, of course, been in all these major houses, opera houses and theaters around the world, singing? Would you tell me if one of those what was most impressive, or what is the most memorable experience you have? If you can pick one of those, what would be?
Well, I'd say, well, really two. I have two different ideas about that. One is Paris Opera, um, because of the setup on the stage. You know, they basically have 9 stages as part of their main stage, where they can go up and down on elevators and move in and out. You know, kind of like a tic-tac-toe setup. They can move things around. It's really unbelievable.
This
So
is the Bastille.
the Bastille, yes, just in terms of just you know uh, production, it's production value. It's really an amazing place. Um, and then one of the most impressive places I've ever been to is just a tiny little theater in Siena, Italy, which is just so old and so small and so beautiful and so perfect, in terms of acoustics and just an intimacy with the audience. That was really impressive. Really.
Very good. And talking about being impressed or having experiences with technology, I understand you have your directing debut last year doing
Oh
the
my
Magic
gosh!
Flute,
Right.
and that was pretty modern, right?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us more
Yeah.
about it?
Sure. Well, let's see if I can get my brain back into that period of time. It was basically I was. Let's see if I can remember. Oh, right. Okay. There's a lot of considerations, right? Budget is one of them, and I sort of had trouble with the idea of a mechanical snake or a dragon or a serpent coming on stage and attacking Tamino, the main character in the opera, right? It's this big thing that often happens in a production, and how sort of silly and dumb it'll look and eggy. I didn't want it to be so fake and stupid looking. Like you
Right.
see a lot. It's kind of hokey, and that could be part of it. Is it hokey? So I decided to sort of go with that, and I came up with the idea of Tamino watching television
I saw
and
some clips.
falling asleep, with a bottle of whiskey in his hand, and sort of conjuring up a dream of Godzilla, right? Because that was one of the images, the last images he sees before he falls asleep is Godzilla. And so he falls asleep, and Godzilla comes out of the television, right, and comes alive in a way. It's more of a projection, but it's a lot more palatable, easier to believe, because he's just having a dream. And we all know that anything is possible in dreams. So, and he could look like anything. So we were then transported to uh, a desolate planet, where he ends up sort of lost there, and really spends most of the time trying to find his way back and trying to find his root himself, and he himself becomes a hero for his own family. And so that's part of the struggle for that opera. But anyway, yeah, just, I don't know, saving money, not being hokey, and it turns out, well, actually maybe hokey's not so bad.
Right. Did it bring a lot of young people to the opera because of that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, absolutely. Mostly young people. And of course a lot of students, because it was the University, Long Beach.
So do you feel that maybe if we do the operas in a more modern take or setting, will bring more young people to the opera? You think that's possible? That's a good reason?
I think updating and modernizing in and of itself is not a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I just think because we change as society and we see things differently, and it's helpful to, especially young people who aren't coming to the opera as much, it's helpful to speak to them in their own language. I think many operas now are utilizing different media, and so technology has advanced, but also the way young people look at the world and see the world through media, Facebook,
Right.
through video, through YouTube, and all of these things. So yeah, it makes sense to sort of speak in their language. They're part of audiences in Los Angeles as well,
Right.
or any other country.
You work a lot with youngsters. You are in charge of a lot of youth in the theater. And what would you say that the opera or that us as older people
Myself included.
can do to make them excited about the opera and to convince them to come and see this form of art?
Well, I think there are a lot of different ways that I like to talk about opera to young people. The first thing is that it's a story, and it's set to music, and everybody loves music. Opera is not just about Mozart or Verdi. There are many modern operas and many new compositions, and even in the genre of rock music, there are operas. There's so many different ways to tell a story, and we do it through music, and any kind of music. So go to the opera, see something bigger than life, where you can hear something beautiful. Maybe not always beautiful. Maybe something that gets under your skin, on purpose. Something that really provokes you, and to see something live on stage, not always on video or on film. It's live, and it's stimulating every sense, all the senses.
That's a good way to put it. When you stimulate all the senses.
And the other thing I say, by the way, is that there are titles, right? So if you think you're not going to understand, it's not true anymore. Everybody can follow along and understand, and audiences are laughing and crying and being moved at every moment in opera. So that's a good thing.
That's good. My understanding that you also did a recording as Ulisse.
Yes.
In the Monteverdi's opera, Il ritorno di Ulisse in Patria.
Yes.
How was that for you? How did you like it?
It was a great experience, and it was something that I took very seriously. I take any role that I do, I really research and try to understand the history. So to prepare for this role, I actually traveled around Greece and visited many of these places that the character of Ulysses traveled in mythology, or could have traveled, or might have traveled. Very beautiful places, and I sort of, as I was going from island to island, reading the Iliad, reading Ulysses, Return of Ulysses, or at least reading the books that are associated with that, and reading about the history and the characters and studying everything about it. And then when I arrived in Italy, it was at this theater in Siena, this tiny little theater, and which is also a very old and beautiful place, and it makes you sort of feel like you just bathed in history and fantasy, and so it was great because it took me a long time to grow into the role, and I had already studied it in San Francisco because I was covering Tom Sampson at San Francisco Opera, so I had already learned one version of it, sort of a modernized version. And then I did a very old version by Alan Curtis with very old instruments, So I had already sort of gotten a lot of sort of exposure to the opera and the character, and probably more than any other character, I prepared it, and so it was an enriching experience, and the musical is amazing. The music is amazing.
It is. Talking about your inspiration and your passion that you put into a role, is there a role that you would love to play that have not been played yet by you?
Yeah, well, yes, and actually it would be impossible for me to play it, at least to sing it. and that is Othello, Otello. I couldn't sing because I'm not a tenor, nor a dramatic tenor for that matter. So, but it is a role that I would just love to sink my teeth into. But so I would have to act it. That's one thing that I would love to do. It's impossible.
Wow. I guess we all have that. We always dream for the things we don't or we cannot do, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right, exactly.
I understand.
Exactly.
LeRoy, tell us more about the program that is for the outreach education program for kids you are in charge of.
Right. Well, I am. Well, I'm not in charge, but I am heavily involved in creating opera projects that is for children to get involved in. That is to say, I write some of the stories that we then set to music, and sometimes I write some of them, not all of them. But we create programs depending on the age group that is tied in with some opera. It could be Turandot, it could be La Bohème, Carmen, one of the operas. And we tie it in with the school curriculum. So, yeah. So I'll give you an example. I wrote a piece that's called The Marriage of Figueroa. So instead of The Marriage of Figaro, it's about Figueroa, who, by the way, was a general here of California and also governor of California. And so it's very interesting because I find a way to tell his story by using the story of The Marriage of Figaro, which is, of course, by Mozart. And we tie them together, and so the kids have something to learn about history, as well as the opera. And so we make the connection, between real life and fantasy and opera, or real life in art, or art in real life. Bring it together. We teach them chorus parts, so we spend several weeks with them. And we come in, we rehearse with them the music, we teach them about the acting and what it means to be on stage, and also how to work together really in a community to achieve this big project, right? So for the whole process of rehearsing, they're getting us coming in and saying, move here, move there, here's how it works, sing this note, sing that, sing like this, do this and that. And they don't have an idea about what it is until the very last day, when we bring in sets, costumes, lights. These professional singers get in and sing with them, and usually they're just, it's like a deer caught in the headlights for one rehearsal, one dress rehearsal before the show, in front of their peers, in front of the student body and parents and family and friends. And when the whole thing comes together, it's almost like opening up a present at Christmas time, It's it's so moving for us.
Who gets to participate? How is chosen? Is there the audition?
No audition whatsoever. We work with classes in a school, in the inner city, or sometimes, all over Los Angeles County. These kids come from different classes: English, history class, math, gym class, it could be anything. No experience whatsoever is necessary, and many of them have no idea how to sing. So we help them with that. We're not expecting great, beautiful choral sounds coming from them, but what we get from them is, again, a sense of working together to achieve something bigger than just themselves as an individual.
You mix classrooms, or it's only for like a one grader or the
Usually,
8th grader?
It can be 5th, 6th grade, right? That is one program that deals with history and an opera, right? That in one story. And the older kids study more literature, right? So we might do Shakespeare with an operatic production or opera. And yeah, because the little kids, again, they're studying something out of their curriculum. So yeah, the high school kids, we spend more time with. The opera that we write for them is longer. And sometimes we go to schools, where kids are like, "You're going to put me in what? You're going to put me in an opera? I don't think so." And we get a bit of resistance sometimes. But we know in the end that they might actually like what they're going to be involved in. And I can't think of one time where they didn't come away from it saying, "Wow, that was really amazing." And it really takes them out of their comfort zone and puts them in a place in the spotlight where they really have to rely on all of their work that they've done, all of their friends around them, and all of the work that we've done with them to get them through, and that is the experience, I think, that's really amazing to them.
Obviously, we are trying to promote the opera to the Hispanic community. What would be your advice, or what would you say to all of you that are watching? Please come support the arts and make our community more knowledgeable and wanted to be part of the opera. How would you excite them about it?
Well, I teach youth at Casa 101, and a lot of the kids there are aged from 8 to 17, I think, and this is through Los Angeles Opera, LA Opera, and we bring them here. Many of them are Hispanic youth, most of them, as a matter of fact, and we bring them here, and they come to see an opera for the first time. So don't take it from me. Take it from these kids who come here, jaw dropped, and wanting to come back again. So I gotta say, if they can love it, I know anybody can love it. In any language, right? So many of these are children who speak Spanish, and they come here, and there's an opera in French, and actually, I would say for a Hispanic, Spanish speaker, it's easier because it's their first language. English is second, so you can hear another language, and actually they can understand quite a bit. But don't take it from me. Take it from all the youth who have come before, who have loved it and are inspired. Many of them who aren't even interested in singing want to come back and volunteer and work in different aspects of theater. And it happens here. It happens when we go out to schools all over Los Angeles and get them into the opera. They have the same experience that I had when I was a child. And they want to get involved. So there's something about it that I can't even explain. You just have to experience it. You have to come and see for yourself.
We need to make this program more known because it seems like it's a great program, and with all the cuts that we have in our schools these days for the art specifically, it would be great to have people know more about it and support them.
Right.
Would you do me a favor, and
yes.
when you do the next show, invite me so
yes.
I can take some videos? And
yes, absolutely. And it would be great if you can come early in the process once and come at the end to see the difference.
I will do that.
That
Thank you
great.
so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.